What's going on, Mountaineer fans? Up this week, we've got Georgia State down in Atlanta. They are coming off a very close loss to Auburn. Obviously, the score looks a little worse, but there was a pick six at the very end after they gave up the questionable touchdown. Actually, the touchdown was fine, but the catch somewhat before the touchdown was a little questionable. Not a little questionable. It was a bad call. Missed call. We'll look at that. But before we get started on that, I want to give a special shout out to Caleb Dawson. Not only did he have some great goal line plays to help keep Marshall out of the end zone, but before the game, he actually saw my son and myself up in the stands and decided to give us this ball. We were not down at field level by any means. We were about 14 rows from the field, and I don't know what made him pick out my son and me, but he definitely picked him out of the crowd, pointed to him, held up the ball. We came down and got it. He introduced himself, asked my son what his name was. It was a great moment. It was really, really cool. I didn't expect it. He had been actually asking me for a football before the game started and walked around a couple stores downtown, really couldn't find one. So it was kind of funny that he ends up with a actual full-size football, which is almost as big as he is. But anyway, yeah, we had a great game against Marshall. Bryce had a good one. Obviously, Hennigan, Sutton, Noel, Peoples, all the usual suspects. The defense had some great plays. Obviously, Marshall is a very, very good football team. It was pretty much just as we expected. It was a back-and-forth battle. Both lines are very good on both sides of the ball for both teams. Special teams became a little bit more into play than I thought. I knew the field goal kicking for Marshall might be questionable, although they had a different kicker than they had previously. They ended up still missing one that was very important. But yes, I think this weekend should be quite a bit different. From what I've seen on film, this team is not nearly what Marshall was, not what Miami was, maybe on the level of ECU. And I think, if App plays up to potential, it could be out of hand quickly. If they play like they did against Elon, then we might have a little bit of trouble. Georgia State has players. They have people that can make plays. We will see that in the highlights that we're going to look at. But overall, do they dominate at any point into the game? I would say no, they do not. They do not have a quarterback that can dominate a game. He actually reminds me a little bit of De'Aaron King. Not as shifty, but definitely can work some magic and has some Armonte Light look to him for those who got lucky enough to see Armonte play. But we'll take a look at that and see how it goes.
All right, first up, we'll take a look at some Hennigan highlights. He had a huge game. Went for 9 catches and 123 yards. He did go without a touchdown, but he was close there a couple times for breaking one off. But just the hands this guy possesses, the amount of catches he can make in a game, is probably going to set the record soon, sometime this season. And the way he keeps playing, it's definitely a huge advantage for this team. Little Wes Welker-like kind of player for us. And you can see the O-line helping out here. Did this a number of times the other night. Great push to help get a couple more yards and get that receiver down. And then Corey Sutton had a great game. 127 yards, 10 catches, and a touchdown. Just some of the catches that he can make with the hands. Him and Hennigan both just phenomenal hands that can really help change a game. And this hit here, that was probably my favorite play of the night, most underrated play. O-lineman coming in and just cleaning those guys out once Corey's got that catch secured and trying to get a few more yards. Live, I didn't think this catch was going to count. Even after I saw a little review of it, I didn't think so. But that's live there. It's hard to tell. But yeah, he definitely gets that left foot down just slightly before. I guess you could argue if you were a Marshall fan that he didn't have full control. But when you call it a touchdown on the field, it's hard to overturn that one. And this is just phenomenal set of hands right here. I mean, a lot of wide receivers wouldn't make this catch, kind of going back against the grain. Not only securing the ball, but getting that left foot down in bounds just before going out with the rest of the body. Incredible. And then Bryce also had a heck of a game. Went for 283 yards, 1 touchdown, did throw the 1 interception, but also rushed 6 times for 22 yards, which I believe is his most rushing yards in a game so far this season. And he's kind of opened up for him. This one here actually gets called back on a penalty, but that just shows what he can bring to the game if it's necessary and if the defense kind of opens up for him. So I'd expect to see a couple more plays like this now that he's gotten a little more comfortable in the offense as the season's gone on. Cameron Peoples, man, what do you say? 3 touchdowns on the night, 78 yards. I really only kind of surprised that I guess he only had 78 yards, but you know, most of his were pretty important down there near the goal line, getting in there. So we'll take it, and I hope this young man keeps doing what he does best, which is toting that ball, toting the rock. And then Noel just absolutely went off. It's kind of disappointing he didn't score that last touchdown in a sense, but 187 yards with an average of 9.4 per carry is just incredible. This little guy is so shifty and really, really enjoyable to watch run all night long, and especially all over a defense like Marshall. And what is probably the smartest play of the night? No one really saw it coming at the time, but he had the heads up to go down early, secure the win instead of going for the glory and getting the touchdown himself. Unbelievable. I don't know if I'd have thought about that in the moment, but really impressed with that play. And then Virgil in return here. I think we can see quite a few returns just like this on Saturday afternoon. I think he's really going to have a lot of opportunity in the kicking game because I don't believe the Georgia State kicker will put it into the end zone each and every time. So he's going to have plenty of opportunities to return the ball here. And then DeMarco Jackson, again, just another unbelievable performance. 14 total tackles, 7 of them solo, 1 for loss. And, you know, the rest of his guys helping him out on defense. Got McLeod here making a play. That defensive line just getting a pretty good push throughout much of the night. Didn't quite get maybe what we had against some other teams, but definitely helped make a difference in the game. Taylor with a big stop here with the help of Sperlin, of course. Harrington in on a tackle. Even when you miss a tackle, you get the rest of the guys backing you up. It makes you feel pretty secure. This is one reason I feel pretty confident in this weekend's game is defense plays anything like this. As successful as Georgia State's been against a couple other people, they won't be able to do too much against an App State defense when they're on fire. So against Army, Georgia State allowed 258 yards rushing. And we know what App State does best, which is rush the ball. I believe that we'll have plenty of opportunity to beat up on this line. I don't think they're going to be manhandled by any means. I think Georgia State's line's pretty impressive as well. But I saw enough out of Army and a couple of the other games we'll see clips for that should allow App State to continue to open up holes and get their running back some good space to run through in the afternoon on Saturday. This kid's really impressive. Little number 2, Thrash, just kind of came out of nowhere. Is not the wide receiver that everybody was talking about going into the season. That'd be Pickney, who's kind of been battling some injury. But this Thrash kid is unbelievable. I think he's probably their best wide receiver. And if Pickney's back, just his speed and hands combined is really impressive. He's a standout in just about every game they've played. And here we'll see what Georgia State can bring defensively. All going to the ball there, taking down the running back from Army. They don't bring a whole lot of pressure up front. They kind of play more of a zone scheme. And a kind of like a quarterback spy almost. And that's not just against Army here, but you'll see that in the other parts of the highlights as well. Their linebackers stay home pretty good. They don't blitz too often, but they are pretty successful when they do bring some pressure. So we will have to be on the lookout for that. And they can get a good push off that line, but their secondary might be bigger in the blitzing game when they bring a corner down. These guys can hit pretty well. So we'll see what they can do Saturday, but hopefully we can make it look a little bit like this game here. And then I threw in this blocked field goal. This guy's last name is Bacon, which is always a little fun. It's one of their better defenders, but hasn't had a whole lot on the stat sheet this year, which is interesting. And then here is a former walk-on that they have. Kind of reminds me of Anderson Castle. He's just a beast. He's not afraid of the contact and really will just plow people over in order to get a couple extra yards. Not the starter to start the season. We will see that Coates had a couple drops and fumbles to find himself on the bench a little more often. He's gotten back into the rotation a little bit, and he's still a very impressive running back overall. So we'll definitely see him Saturday as well, but got himself into a little fumble trouble early on in the season. And then that's Granger here against UNC, taking one to the house. But overall, this was not a great game for them. UNC dominated much of it. They rushed for 201 yards with Sam Howell, the quarterback for UNC, going over 100 all by himself. They also threw for 406 yards. So again, Army torched them on the ground. UNC torched them in the air the very next week. App State's got a good enough attack on both sides of the ball there that I just can't see Georgia State stopping the App State offense much this weekend. And then we could also take a look at why Brown has lost his starting job as quarterback. Just kind of like Coates, the running back, just too many turnovers. He wasn't playing great, but also just struggled with some easier passes too. And here we'll take a look at a fake punt they ran against UNC. Kind of crazy. I think they ran it because they really didn't expect UNC to think it was coming. I don't know how much they knew it was coming, but they obviously figured it out pretty quick and snuffed it out. But, we will have to be on the lookout for some gadget plays they may try and run, especially if they get down early, like I expect. Here's the game against Charlotte. They actually had kind of a third running back kind of come out of nowhere, Williams, who scored their only rushing touchdown of the day. But, yeah, he ran for only 73 yards and only on 7 carries, which was the least of any of the running backs. But, yeah, still found himself in the end zone. And then, again, Greg running over people just like he usually does. Just an impressive kid to watch play the position. I'm also seeing some throws out of Granger here. I mean, it's not that he can't make some throws. Just doesn't do it as often as some of these highlights maybe make it seem like. But he can make plays, and, he does have an arm to get it downfield. Some more good defensive plays here. Just show their guys that secondary can make some plays as well. Really interesting play here. Looked like he was going to the house for an easy 6, and he gets stripped, and Charlotte Kinzer returns this one. That's early on in the game before anybody had even scored, but could take advantage of that defensively. And again, another ill-advised throw into double coverage, even if it is their best wide receiver trying to get to it. And then here's the Auburn game. Greg just went off on this one. Had a total of 150 yards on 12 carries and had a touchdown to go along with it. And one of his long runs was over 50 yards. You'll just see here that he's just a bruising back. Again, hard to bring down, not afraid of any contact. So certainly not going to be shy running the ball against the App State defense on Saturday. then we'll see some more scrambles from Granger. He's definitely more of that option style quarterback who's going to run just as much as he throws, maybe even more so, depending on how much pressure you could put on him. He had to run quite a bit in this Auburn game, but I don't know if Auburn didn't expect it and didn't plan properly for it, but he definitely took advantage of that fact. I think App now will have enough film on him to know that that's coming and likely use a little bit more spy package, man-to-man, to make sure that doesn't happen. There's Thrash getting wide open again. I think that was more of a broken down coverage than Thrash doing anything phenomenal, but we'll see. And then this is that Armonte Light comment that I made. This is what's going to remind you of it. Just something that nobody could have predicted or seen coming. I don't know how he evaded what seemed like 17 tackles, but it was probably at least 3, 4, 5, 6. Seventh guy finally brought him down from the looks of it. And again, just swarming the ball here defensively to prevent Auburn from getting much on the ground. They actually didn't have a great game rushing. In the game, again, we see another punt issue with Georgia State. Looks like if you bring the pressure, you could possibly block one, and we know how well we've done that over the years. Here is the terrible call, frankly. It's pretty clear and evident that the ball hits the ground. I'm not quite sure if the official didn't see that version of the replay or what happened. I'm not quite sure, but that was a first down play. They still had every opportunity to win the game here. This is the 4th and 9 play, and they were inches away from making a tackle here on the quarterback before he finds a wide open guy in the end zone. Not sure if the guy in the secondary there thought the game was over or what, but it is what it is.
So, having looked at everything, I think I'm pretty comfortable saying that App should win this one pretty handily if they come to play. They cannot be lazy. They cannot have too many mistakes. Obviously, we saw us overcome some mistakes against Marshall. This is the type of team, we see it last week with Auburn, they can make you pay for those mistakes. So you have to minimize them or keep them to be zero. We also can't take a whole lot of penalties here. We have to play smart football. It's pretty obvious. Special teams will come into play here. I believe that we can take advantage of their kicking. They don't really return the ball very well. They just don't return it much at all in the first place. Most of their kickoffs, they're just taking the 25-yard line because they're fair catching it. But punting, they don't seem to get a whole lot going on that aspect. But I do think App can take advantage of those in their position by fielding those types of kicks. Got to be careful with the punting. Their punter keeps it low, line drives that could cause some different looks than we've seen out of the usual punting style. This guy kicks a little differently. But I think that it could also open up the field, and we could see some big returns both in the punting and the kick return game. I look for a big game from Virgil and Hennigan in both of those regards. And I think that in the end, App should win this one comfortably. But you never know. This is the first game of conference play. We know conference play gets a little weird. So good luck to everybody. Go down there. Be safe. Be loud there in Atlanta for those of us who can't be there. And as always, go Apps.